And away we go. Episode 1121 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025, the day after the first padded practice at 2025 Commanders training camp. The pads were on as the heat is on. A padded practice in the sweltering heat of late July in the Washington, D.C. area. What could be better? Coming up later in the show, a full report on the merits and meaning of the padded practice, as well as an update from head coach Dan Quinn on the competition between Josh Conerly Jr. and Andrew Wylie for the starting right tackle job, and more praise from Quinn for interior defensive lineman Daron Payne. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, in which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year and no matter the topic. And the number one topic at Commanders training camp remains the stalled contract extension negotiations between the team and receiver Terry McLaurin, who now is holding in as opposed to holding out. And we on Monday afternoon got a major item from ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show, as Schefter said that he believes that McLaurin, quote, wants considerably more, end quote, than a $33 million average annual value. A $33 million AAV. Wow. Considerably more. If that is true, that is a whopper. Next segment, reaction to and analysis of the latest in the Terry McLaurin saga, including from where this intel from Adam Schefter may be coming. You always have to wonder, from where is the intel coming? Who is the leaker? Very interesting to consider that item when it comes to what Schefter had to say on Monday afternoon. And I will discuss another Commanders receiver, Deebo Samuel Sr., who in a post-practice press conference on Monday morning provided key context on his battle with pneumonia last season. And also on the show, we'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats, they on Monday night won at the American League West, leading Houston Astros 2-1, but this was off horrendous news. The Nats on Monday evening announced that their number one pitching prospect, starting pitcher Travis Sykora, underwent a recent MRI exam that revealed a torn ulnar collateral ligament in his right elbow, and so he is scheduled to undergo Tommy John surgery in 2 weeks. The O's, they on Monday evening ripped the American League leading Toronto Blue Jays 11-4 at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, as outfielders and trade chips Ramon Laureano and Cedric Mullins had big games, but starting pitcher and trade chip Zach Eflin did struggle. Before we get to some feedback, a salute to now former Capitals center Nicklas Backstrom. And that does sound odd to say, former Capitals center Nicklas Backstrom. But the Caps on Monday morning on X officially said goodbye to Backstrom. He's returning to his native Sweden to continue his hockey career. Backstrom was on the long-term injured reserve list for the entirety of the Caps' 2024-2025 season. This due to his chronically bad left hip. This past season was the final season of a 5-year, $46 million contract to which Backstrom was re-signed in January 2020. The Caps took Backstrom with the number 4 overall pick in the 2006 NHL draft. He, to me, is the second best player in Caps history. Winger Alex Ovechkin, of course, is number 1. Backstrom is number 2. Backstrom in Caps regular season franchise history has the following rankings. Number 1 in assists, number 2 in points, number 2 in games, number 4 in goals. And, of course, he was a big part of the Caps' 2017-2018 Stanley Cup championship team. A tremendous run for Nicklas Backstrom with the Caps, who absolutely should retire his number 19. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Michael King on Dan Quinn's use of bad words. Writes Mike, can you please get one of your guests to tell Dan Quinn how his profanity is jarring and makes him sound stupid and unprofessional? And it is so unnecessary. I can't stand it. How come Gibbs won Super Bowls and NASCAR Cups without being profane? Quinn needs to grow up. Thank you for the email, Mike. Dan Quinn, during his press conferences, does at times use naughty words, which we on this podcast do bleep out. We on this podcast have a no cussing policy, a no cursing policy, a no naughty word policy. In the early days of this podcast, put that out there. Did you want me to cuss? Did you want bad words on the podcast? And the overwhelming sentiment was no. And truthfully, that's what I wanted. Cussing is not really my thing. Not that I'm some saint, okay? Trust me, I'm not. But I don't cuss much, if at all, off the air. And so to do so on the air would just not have been authentic, would not have been genuine. And I am sensitive to people who listen to this podcast while with kids. I have 2 small kids, so I get that. Cussing is a funny thing to me. Ron Rivera, during his time as Washington head coach, would cuss during press conferences. Eric Bieniemy, during his lone season, 2023, as Commanders' assistant head coach / offensive coordinator, would cuss during press conferences. And then he eventually apologized for cussing so much. Perhaps you remember that. And with Dan Quinn, the Commanders actually have marketed his cussing. That line that he had last year about doing hard S with good people, the team has promoted that. Mike mentioned the greatest head coach in Washington history, Joe Gibbs. Yes, he never cussed, at least publicly. But let's be honest about this. He had assistant coaches who cussed like crazy, okay? Joe Bugle and Wayne Sevier were notorious for cursing. Bugle's favorite phrase was something that sounded a lot like, shall we say, cork soaker. Bugle used to call everyone a cork soaker. I don't think that cussing makes you a bad person, and specific to the NFL. I mean, this is a violent, intense, highly competitive, testosterone-laden league. Using the occasional curse word to motivate people isn't the end of the world. But to Mike's point, there is a lack of decorum in someone in a position of power cussing publicly. And, I with this topic of cussing, go back to the greatest stand-up comedian of all time, Jerry Seinfeld. So stand-up comedy, of course, is filled with people who use bad and vulgar language, and that's fine. A lot of these people are really funny, but I will never forget going to the Kennedy Center in 2003 to see Seinfeld do stand-up. And he, of course, was outstanding, but the worst word / phrase that he used the entire show was GD. And he did not do any bits on, sex or anything like that. Why? Because he didn't need to. He did not need the crutch of cussing to be funny. He did not need the crutch of vulgarity to be funny. And I'm not offended by these things. I've laughed at these things plenty, okay? But there is an intellect and a cleverness and a skill to where Seinfeld at a big-time venue like the Kennedy Center could do a stand-up act for, 45 minutes to an hour and never use a word / phrase worse than GD and never go near anything having to do with sex or anything like that. Anybody can drop a bunch of F-bombs. Anybody can do a bunch of sex jokes. Seinfeld, the GOAT of stand-up comedy, didn't need to do any of that, and he killed it that night at the Kennedy Center. Email from Rich on Commanders tight end John Bates. Writes Rich, Bates may be our best blocking tight end since Don Warren. Thank you for that, Rich. I agree. And I've said that. We on this podcast over the last month have had not one but 2 guests who raved about Bates as a blocker. Commanders analyst Mark Bullock on episode 1105 and Commanders analyst and former Redskins tight end Logan Paulson on episode 1109. But here's all that you need to know about how much the team values John Bates. So the Commanders this past March 11th announced the re-signings of tight ends Zach Ertz and John Bates, each of whom had been set to be an unrestricted free agent in the 2025 offseason. Ertz, who is the team's number 1 tight end, reportedly got a 1-year contract. Bates, who is the team's number 2 tight end, reportedly got a 3-year contract. And of course, the players' ages had a lot to do with the difference there in terms for those contracts. But the team, since Adam Peters became its general manager in January 2024, has given out very few contracts of more than 2 years. Here we had Bates getting a 3-year contract. The Commanders clearly value him a lot. This was Logan Paulson on episode 1109 on the blocking of John Bates last season, and you'll hear Paulson compare Bates as a blocker with the fellow Commanders tight end Ben Sinnott as a blocker.
It's hard to overstate how good John Bates was this year in the run game and what he does consistently. Like he's just, he's a pro's pro when it comes to that stuff. And, I don't talk to him about his process necessarily. Like we talk about kids and stuff like that, but I don't talk to him about his process. But his process to me, it's his resume, it's his film, like the detail oriented nature of how he approaches blocks, how he blocks different fronts. His preparation is apparent. And so to me, like he's probably one of the top 3, 4 blocking Ys in the NFL, and that's an extremely valuable resource. And I think Ben Sinnott, he shows a great physicality, but again, there's the really good blocking Ys. And again, I always wanted to be in this category, so I feel very, knowledgeable or ready to speak on this. There's a detail-oriented nature to the techniques, to how you get to certain blocks that John Bates has that Ben Sinnott is still learning. So I think the physicality is there for him, but I think it's going to take that next step of professionalism to get to where he's even in the same conversation as Bates. And he might never get there because what John Bates is doing is extremely challenging and it's extremely impressive. And so give him all the credit in the world, man. He did a great job this year.
Yeah, Logan Paulson, big fan of John Bates as a blocker, as are the Commanders. If you are a Commanders fan and you're looking for good conversation about the team, check out bgobsession.com. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been the home of the most knowledgeable, friendly, and passionate Washington fans on the web since 2009. BGO is a special place in which you can join your fellow fans for smart football discussion, great contests, game day chats, and even lifelong friendships. If you are turned off by the toxicity of social media, visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. We had Commanders training camp on Monday for a second consecutive day. Head receiver Terry McLaurin signing autographs for and posing for pictures with fans. So this was day 2 of what clearly is a hold-in by McLaurin as he remains in the midst of stalled contract extension talks. His hold-out on Sunday morning became a hold-in. The Commanders early Sunday morning announced that McLaurin had been reinstated from the reserve/did not report list and placed on the active/physically unable to perform list. This due to an ankle injury that just about everyone believes is a cover for him to not practice. So McLaurin was getting fined $50,000 for each day at camp that he no-showed. That fine is mandated by the collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and NFL Players Association. So he now is not being fined, but he still is not practicing. Where are we headed with this Terry McLaurin situation? The holdout becoming a hold-in doesn't necessarily mean that he and the team are any closer to a deal, although his agent, Buddy Baker, on Monday was at the Commanders team facility for at least a second consecutive day. A big part of this situation is either side being unreasonable? What are the Commanders offering? What is McLaurin asking for? Well, we on Monday afternoon got this from ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show on the separation between what the team is offering and what McLaurin is asking for.
It's been vast, and
Wow.
It's been vast, and so it's up to the two sides to figure out a way to bridge their differences. But I would say that DK Metcalf was the same draft class as Terry McLaurin. He got about $33 million a year. I wouldn't think that Terry is willing to take less than that, and I think he wants considerably more than that. Now, what it comes in at, we'll wind up seeing. Washington, they're not there right now, and they love and value Terry McLaurin, but they love and value him at a different price. So these two sides right now seem apart on the deal. Like, they don't seem close today, and I don't know how they're going to get that resolved and figured out, but these things usually find a way of working themselves out over time. But as of today, I don't get the sense that anything's close.
So, Adam Schefter saying that the separation between what the Commanders are offering and what Terry McLaurin is asking for is, quote, vast, end quote. And Schefter also said that he thinks that McLaurin, quote, wants considerably more, end quote, than the $33 million average annual value, the $33 million AAV that Pittsburgh Steelers receiver DK Metcalf has. If this is true, this is ridiculous. I would have no problem with the Commanders signing McLaurin to, say, a 3-year contract extension with an AAV of, say, $30 million to $33 million. If he actually, as Adam Schefter said, quote, wants considerably more, end quote, than a $33 million AAV, then McLaurin is being unreasonable. DK Metcalf is not as good as McLaurin. That is true. But DK Metcalf is entering his age 28 season. McLaurin is entering his age 30 season, and a contract extension would not start until the 2026 season, his age 31 season. I want the Commanders to sign Terry McLaurin to an extension, but if he's asking for considerably more than a $33 million AAV, sorry. I am with General Manager Adam Peters in not giving that to McLaurin. If McLaurin is asking for $35, $36, $37 million in terms of the AAV, sorry, I'm not doing that. And you got to wonder something. You got to wonder if the Commanders, who are basically leaking nothing these days, leaked this intel to Adam Schefter. Because this intel, if true, does not make Terry McLaurin look good. In fact, I wonder if this is Adam Peters' response to Terry McLaurin on July 15th in that 32-plus minute session with reporters, sounding off on his frustration with the team in these contract extension talks. McLaurin on July 15th did not make the team look good. Now, the Commanders potentially have made McLaurin not look good. Is this situation now getting ugly? Boy, I hope not, but you gotta wonder. For the purpose of context, here are the top 5 average annual values, the top 5 AAVs for NFL receivers per overthecap.com. Number 1, the Cincinnati Bengals' Jamar Chase, $40.25 million. Number 2, the Minnesota Vikings' Justin Jefferson, $35 million. Number 3, the Dallas Cowboys' CeeDee Lamb, $34 million. Number 4, the Pittsburgh Steelers' DK Metcalf, $32.999,882 million. And number 5, the New York Jets' Garrett Wilson, $32.5 million. Terry McLaurin on Monday morning briefly spoke with reporters for a second consecutive day. We, during that session, had this back and forth between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and McLaurin.
Terry, how much closer are you to working out a deal?
We're just taking it day by day.
Being here in the building, though, how does that improve the dialogue?
Just taking it day by day.
Yeah, just taking it day by day, aren't we all? Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he did a pre-practice press conference on Monday morning. We, during that presser, had this exchange between Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post and Quinn.
Hey, Dan, good morning.
Good morning.
Just on Terry to check in, do you have any more clarity on his ankle situation today? And do you have any more optimism on the business side that we're any closer getting something done?
For us, no change. I can say, when you do the assessment on what begins on PUP, so for he and for Sam, they'll begin, the day doing the rehab portion. Some days that'll include running. Some days it'll, be more of strength and rehab portions. Then in the afternoon, it's kind of normal business. They go through meetings, they can watch the walkthrough but can't participate. So we just have this process that we'll go through with both of them, and we won't miss it. But both of them are real pros, and they'll put the work in. So no timeline on that. And I certainly, as we're sitting here today, we're still building on that.
I tell you, great to hear Eye of the Tiger in the background of that exchange. The Sam to whom Dan Quinn referred in that cut, as you likely figured out, is right guard Samuel Cosmi, who the Commanders on July 23rd announced having placed on the active/physically unable to perform list. This due to his torn right ACL that he suffered in the 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions this past January 18th in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. What about the Commanders' number 2 receiver, Deebo Samuel Sr.? We on Monday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Dan Quinn.
What have you seen from Deebo so far?
One of the things I found out about him was I knew the competitor and that, how much fun he is to coach. He really is. And that part, you feel his energy on the field. We've moved him around into some different locations already. Been back on kickoff return as well, so trying to find and learn him, John, as it goes through this month process. We did it in the OTAs, different locations, different spots, different plays, but that's the secret sauce of it is, like for years you've seen him on a deep cross and catch and run because of the speed that he can really go. But with returning and that side of things too, there's just more chances to see what he can do, and so it's off to a good start.
What's the fun part? Like, what are some examples of that?
Yeah, just the energy that he brings to meetings, to practice. He's thoughtful. He wants to ask questions. What if we did it like this? So he challenges you in a good way and makes you think. So he's been really, really fun to coach. He loves football. Like, you can feel it.
Well, we heard Dan Quinn mention returning regarding Deebo Samuel, and yeah, he was used as a kickoff returner during Monday morning's practice. But we also heard Quinn allude to Deebo's biggest strength, YAC, yards after catch. Deebo has had the following rankings among all qualified NFL receivers in yards after catch per reception per Sport Radar for the 2021 through 2024 regular seasons. 2021, number 1 at 9.97. 2022, number 1 at 8.8. 2023, number 1 at 8.78. 2024, number 5 at 8.25. He has been a YAC machine. We on Monday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore and Dan Quinn.
To follow up on Deebo, beyond his just production, what do you think he can bring to a team and an offense from a physicality standpoint, mentality, identity, that kind of thing?
Yeah. There's certain plays, breaking a tackle, getting the extra first down. It's interesting. Sometimes there can be a pass or a run for that instance is it 2nd and 1 or is it first down? It's that close. I'm talking about a third down conversion. I'm talking about another first down. And I feel that with him, the finishing of the play. And that's a real trait, whether it's a run play, a pass play, there's a finishing element to his game that I really, really admire.
And hopefully Deebo Samuel for this season is at his best. The Commanders this past March 12th, minutes after the start of the NFL's 2025-2026 league year at 4 p.m. Eastern, announced having traded a 5th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft to the San Francisco 49ers for Deebo. The Commanders got him with 1 season left on a 3-year contract extension that was announced by the Niners on August 1st, 2022. And Adam Schefter on March 19th in a post on X broke the news of a reworked contract for Deebo Samuel. Quote, a reworked deal for Deebo in D.C. The Commanders are guaranteeing $17 million of Deebo Samuel's previously non-guaranteed salary for this season, along with adding another $3 million worth of incentives per sources. Samuel now will play this season on a 1-year deal worth up to $20 million, including $17 million guaranteed. End quote. And Deebo, during his introductory press conference with the Commanders on March 20th, confirmed his contract having been reworked. He is coming off a down season during which he supposedly was overweight. Deebo in the 2024 regular season played in 15 of the Niners' 17 games, but he had an NFL career worst yards per touch of just 8.67, had just 806 yards from scrimmage, and had just 4 combined receiving and rushing touchdowns. However, there with his 2024 season is important context on which Deebo on Monday morning elaborated big time. Deebo did a post-practice press conference on Monday morning. We, during that presser, had this back and forth between Adam Kilgore and Deebo.
Last year, the illness that you had in the middle of the season, how much did that affect you in your game? And when did you start to feel like yourself again, really?
What you talking about, pneumonia? Brother, the pneumonia story was crazy. I woke up, I was sleeping one night and woke up at probably 2, 3 in the morning and couldn't stop coughing, but I never had pneumonia and never knew what it was. So I wake up in the morning, get ready for the game. I called my IV lady to come do some breathing treatment and get an IV because I just thought I was dehydrated or just needed some sugar or something along those lines. And going out there to pregame warm-up, I just couldn't breathe, literally couldn't breathe, couldn't move. So I went in the training room, got another IV. I just thought something was just wrong. And then probably 4 or 5 plays in the game, I feel like if I would have won another play, I probably would have crashed. So I was just hey, coach, something ain't right. We got to see what's going on. And I go to the hospital and my whole chest is flamed up. So I was in the hospital probably 3-4 days, and and got out. And you know me, the competitor I am, I just, put myself in a position to be in the best shape possible and just go out there and contribute to the team.
But I would imagine like that kind of thing, it's in your it stays with you.
Nah, for sure. Yeah.
Did you feel like you were only back to yourself like after the year ended?
Kind of probably like towards the end, where I kind of got my breathing back and like felt like normal. Like, coming off pneumonia, it's just like, it's kind of hard to breathe. So it's kind of hard to build that capacity back up. But towards the end of the year, I felt fine.
Being here, it's a new team, like he was saying. It's a contract year for you. Do you feel like this is like a pretty significant season in your career and the way your future is going to be able to be shaped?
Yeah, for sure. But I just take it day by day and just let the cards play itself.
So how about all of that from Deebo Samuel on his battle with pneumonia last season? Scary stuff. I don't want to just write off all of his struggles last season to pneumonia, but it's not far-fetched to think that the pneumonia was a big-time factor in him having a down season. I mean, what he described right there was rough, and I do continue to take solace in the Commanders knowing Deebo Samuel well. They know what they have in this guy. The Niners took Deebo out of the University of South Carolina in the second round of the 2019 NFL Draft. He played for the Niners for the 2019 through 2024 seasons. Commanders general manager Adam Peters worked for the Niners from January 2017 to January 2024. Also, Commanders run game coordinator / running backs coach Anthony Lynn. He was the Niners assistant head coach / running backs coach from February 2022 to February 2024. And remember, the Commanders have the Deebo Samuel whisper. The Commanders this past April hired former NFL receiver Wes Welker as a personnel analyst, and Welker is known as a Deebo Samuel whisper. Welker got a lot out of Deebo during Welker's 3 seasons as Niners receivers coach, 2019 through 2021. Well, we on Monday morning had the first padded practice at 2025 Commanders training camp. This was a practice that was open to fans, though the fans to whom the practice was open were certain season ticket holders, but the pads were on, the people were in attendance, and Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels killed it. He had his best day at training camp so far, multiple impressive throws. Padded practices do matter a lot more than non-padded practices. Padded practices are a lot more telling than non-padded practices. So for Daniel's best day at camp to be the first padded practice at camp says a lot, but of course is not shocking given who we're talking about here. There essentially are 3 types of training camp practices for NFL teams: helmets, shells, and pads. We on Monday morning had what is the highest level of physicality at a training camp practice, the padded practice. And this practice, like Sunday morning's practice and Tuesday morning's practice, an 8 a.m. practice due to the heat. The Commanders' training camp practice for this past Friday was moved up from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. due to the heat. And the Commanders on Saturday morning announced updated times regarding training camp practices for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, including each practice being moved up from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. due to the heat. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he did a pre-practice press conference early Monday morning. This was his opening statement, beginning with him acknowledging Sunday morning's practice, which was the team's first practice open to fans this training camp.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Looking back from yesterday, it was really cool to have the fans here. And, for that first practice, I heard them, felt their support, for sure. So that was a blast. We'll begin padded practices today, and you get a certain amount of them through the rest of training camp, and then the same thing in season. But it's an important process for the line of scrimmages because the techniques are adjusted some with pads, where without more hands out to here, and now you use your shoulder pads. So that's the real difference between one to the other. It's not a live tackling or live scrimmage, but the techniques do get adjusted, and it's an important part of playing those positions. So that begins today. So all that said, get rocking with you guys.
Yeah, the first padded practice at training camp, a special day, and for several reasons. We on Monday morning had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Hey, DQ. Whether it's Pop Warner, high school, the first day of pads is always there's something special about it. Can you expand on that? Like, what is it about putting those pads on for the first time?
For sure, it's the essence of our game. It's physical, it's contact, and I'm glad that you brought up, from like youth football and high school ball, and like it's also a responsibility to like teach it right. How are you tackling? How are you making these contact? Because that's important. This game that we love, like you can be tough as hell, and you can also, do it as best you can to do it safely. And that's the responsibility of the players to one another, their love for one another. But it's also our responsibility. Let's teach it right. We want our team and our identity to be tough as hell. But for us to do that, you've got to take care of one another and do it correctly. But there is a lot of fun that goes into this day. There'll be more energy that you'll hear, and then it gets normal again, after a few days, because we'll do this, for over the next 6 months, quite a few times. But on the first day, it is part of the essence of the game.
All right. Now, there were multiple Commanders players who did not practice on Monday morning due to getting Veterans Days off. Those players, left tackle Laramie Tunsil, tight end Zach Ertz, edge defenders Von Miller and Cleveland Farrell, and cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. So the padded practice on Monday morning was missing some star power, but the padded practice is especially valuable for evaluating offensive linemen, running backs, and defensive linemen. Dan Quinn on Monday morning on what he would be especially focusing on during the padded practice.
More of the line of scrimmage work. We're going to do some more red zone things, but all the padded practices, you really want to emphasize some things. So that could be, first and second downs, team run and play pass, team run, and so you're just getting that the run game, to get that going, that takes a lot of work. It's the combinations, the skill, and like I said, the techniques are adjusted. So that's where my eyes are today. We also have, we're back into like kickoff and kickoff return. So seeing some of these guys in space make these blocks, like I said, with pads on, you can get a little more contact and work it. So those are probably the two things, the team run periods and the kickoff and kickoff return. Those two spots are where my emphasis will look towards today.
And the Commanders on Monday morning had receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. and running back Austin Eckler on kickoff returns. Interesting that Eckler still is considered an option as a kickoff returner. Eckler, for the 2024 regular season, was one of the best kickoff returners in the NFL, 31.3 yards per kickoff return over 19 returns. But he last regular season suffered 2 concussions, including a nasty concussion in the 34-26 loss to the Dallas Cowboys at Northwest Stadium last November 24th. Eckler on the kickoff of safety, Wanye Thomas's 43-yard return of an onside kick for a touchdown with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter, had a 38-yard kickoff return, but Eckler on that return got blasted in being tackled by linebackers Damone Clark and Nick Vigil. Eckler walked off the field with assistance. Eckler is entering his age 30 season. He, of course, is a running back. The Commanders at running back would seem to be Brian Robinson Jr., RB1, Austin Eckler, RB2, and then a battle for RB3 involving Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, although Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is really standing out in this training camp. Decisive cuts, violence as a runner, that was on display during the padded practice on Monday morning. So perhaps we are seeing Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt mount a threat in terms of Brian Robinson as the Commanders' RB1. We'll see. But this was Dan Quinn on Monday morning on what he wanted to see from his running backs during the padded practice.
The real test would come, honestly, in the preseason games, but it matters here because the thudding of the contact to go. So the way that we practice with pads, talking specifically to a running back or any ball carrier, for the contact and the thud to happen, you see them, they see you. We're not looking to hit somebody from the side where they go lateral. So that's where we want to see, can you make people miss in space? Can you lower your shoulder and, see that contact and that yards after the contact? So those are some of the things at the running back spot. But it definitely helps on the evaluation piece for the line of scrimmage and the running backs to have padded practices.
By the way, 4 of the 5 Commanders running backs who I mentioned are entering contract seasons of some kind. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols are set to be unrestricted free agents in the 2026 offseason. Chris Rodriguez is set to be a restricted free agent in the 2026 offseason. With the offensive line, we do continue to see a rotation between Josh Conerly Jr. and Andrew Wylie as the first-team right tackle, so that very much is a competition. We on Monday morning had this exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Morning, Dan.
Morning, Dave.
Do you anticipate Conerly and Wylie getting run with the ones through a couple of preseason games?
Yes. And as we're going, we haven't hit with the guys yet, but we do recognize the work that guys need and how we go. There's all sorts of good matchups. The other one that helps is the practices. When you go against another team, not just there's advantages from the coaching side. Okay, we like that scheme. Hey, would you blitz more? And most of the time, the coaches, hey, do this, do that. We work together to help, test who we need to test. So I like that we're adding the practices, Dave. It's good for any player. It's especially good for the new player.
All right, the Commanders' first of 3 games in the 2025 preseason is a week from Friday. Commanders at the New England Patriots on Friday night, August 8th at 7:30, and the Commanders' joint practice at the Pats is on Wednesday, August 6th. While we're talking linemen, more praise for interior defensive lineman Daron Payne. Now, this constant praise is a function in part of Dan Quinn being asked about Payne a good bit, but Payne continues to draw rave reviews. Is he about to have his first big season since his 2022 contract season? I have been begging for the return of contract season Daron Payne. Is that guy about to be back? We on Monday morning had this exchange between Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
You spoke very highly of Daron Payne during OTAs and minicamp. How's that carried over to training camp? And being a guy that's been on that line since 2018, been with this team since 2018, how as a coach do you lean on him?
I can't speak to the past, but man, I have had so much fun coaching Daron this spring and in training camp. He is on it. And it's nice to see, connection him and Kinlaw and Wise and, Martin and now Miller and others that are new to the team and their fight, their battle, how we're using guys. Daron, he is right at the front of it. I like that he is, he doesn't have to say it. He's just doing it. And, I really respect that.
All right, it's exciting to hear all of this praise for Daron Payne, but he, of course, has to back this up. Very disappointing last 2 seasons for Payne. He needs to have a big season, and this coming season is a pseudo-contract season for him because he, as things stand right now, is a salary cap cut candidate in the 2026 offseason. The number 1 wild card for the Commanders' defense this coming season, to me, is cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. Number 2 to me is Daron Payne. If Lattimore and Payne this coming season are healthy and play as they are capable of playing, this defense has a chance to be really good. Always really good is Catering by Uptown, which provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, especially a wedding, visit cateringbyuptown.com, mention that Al Galdi sent you, and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It's run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. So the Nationals on Monday night won for the fifth time in 7 games, a 2-1 win at one of the best teams in the majors, the American League West leading Houston Astros in Game 1 of a 3-game series. Certainly a nice win for the Nats, who are playing better, although they are still very much sellers regarding the 2025 MLB trade deadline, which is this Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 44-62. More on this win at the Astros shortly. But we on Monday evening had terrible Nats news. The Nats on Monday evening announced that their number one pitching prospect, starting pitcher Travis Sykora, underwent a recent MRI exam that revealed a torn ulnar collateral ligament in his right elbow. And so he is scheduled to undergo Tommy John surgery in 2 weeks. He is likely to miss most, if not all, of the 2026 season. Horrendous news. Sykora, per MLB Pipeline, is the number 24 overall prospect in baseball, and per Baseball America is the number 36 overall prospect in baseball. He's not just the Nats' top pitching prospect, he's among the top prospects in all of baseball. The Nats took Sykora out of a high school in Texas in the 3rd round of the 2023 MLB draft. This season is his age 21 season, so he's young enough to where Tommy John surgery does not have to ruin his career. But still, this is awful news. The hope was that Sykora would be Major League ready at some point next season. We're now looking at least the 2027 season and maybe beyond, and you wonder to what extent this Travis Sykora news might influence how the Nats view their rebuild, given that the team's top pitching prospect will not be Major League ready until at least the 2027 season. As for the 2-1 win at the Astros on Monday night, another very well-pitched game by the Nats, who got very good pitching in winning 2 out of 3 games at the Minnesota Twins over the weekend. The Nats starting pitcher on Monday night was Brad Lord, who made his second start since being moved back into the Nats rotation, and he was good again. Lord allowed 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. He gave up just 1 hit, which was a double. He issued 1 walk. He recorded 2 strikeouts, so he threw a lot of strikes, 59 pitches, 39 strikes, just 20 balls. Lord in the Nats' 6-1 win over the Cincinnati Reds at Nationals Park last Tuesday evening, July 22nd, allowed 1 run in 4 innings. He's still being built back up to being a starter, but the run prevention has been good. And you look at Brad Lord now for this regular season, 37 games, including 8 starts, 74 1/3 innings, ERA of 3.27, whip of 1.20. He is both a starter and a reliever, has done a nice job. And the Nats relief pitching in this 2-1 win at the Astros on Monday night was good. 4 Nats relievers combined for 3 2/3 scoreless innings. Connor Pilkington tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning. He in the bottom of the 6th faced 3 batters and got 2 outs. Luis Garcia tossed the scoreless bottom of the 7th despite giving up a leadoff double and then issuing a walk. Jose A. Ferrer tossed the scoreless bottom of the 8th with 2 strikeouts, and Kyle Finnegan tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th for the save. I tell you, the Nats bullpen has been a lot better lately. I'm reluctant to say that, given how bad the bullpen has been this season, but the bullpen lately has been better. The Nats offense in this 2-1 win at the Astros on Monday night. So the Nats scored just 2 runs, totaled just 4 hits, and went 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Now, 3 of the 4 hits were extra base hits, as the 4 hits were a home run, 2 doubles, and a single. And the Nats did work 4 walks, but the Nats struck out a whopping 19 times. Astros starting pitcher Framber Valdez, he had his way with the Nats via his curveball. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings with 12 strikeouts versus 2 walks. Not playing at all in this game was outfielder James Wood, who has been slumping big time. Wood for this month of July has an OPS of just .576, and so Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo gave Wood Monday off. But playing in the game was Riley Adams. He is the Nats starting catcher and number 8 batter, went 2 for 4 with a solo homer and a single. Adams in a Nats 1-run 7th had a 2-out opposite field solo homer to right field for a 2-1 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 348 feet per StatCast. Not exactly a moonshot, but a homer is a homer. Riley Adams right now is serving as the Nats' number 1 catcher with Keibert Ruiz back on the 7-day concussion injured list. Adams for this month of July has an OPS of .703. That's far from great, but that is a lot better than what Ruiz was doing. Ruiz for this regular season has an OPS of just .590. 95. I hope that Ruiz is doing well. It's concerning that he now is on the 7-day concussion injured list for a second time this season. But when he is healthy, I don't think that it should be a given that he's back to being the Nats' number one catcher. Game 2 for the Nats at the Astros, Tuesday night at 8:10. Michael Soroka will be the Nats' starting pitcher. Well, the Orioles on Monday evening hammered the team that had the best record in MLB, and the O's got a third consecutive win, an 11-4 win over the Toronto Blue Jays at Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Game 1 of a 4-game series, as the O's, Joe Angel, again, were in the win column.
And the Orioles again in the win column.
Yes, Joe, the win column. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 48-58. The Blue Jays in this regular season now are an American League best 63-44. The O's have a number of players who are on expiring contracts and thus could be traded in the lead up to the 2025 MLB trade deadline, which is this Thursday, July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern. Several of those players were on display on Monday evening. The Orioles offense in this game was great. The O's scored 11 runs, totaled 16 hits, worked 3 walks, and went 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position. The 16 hits were 4 home runs, 4 doubles, and 8 singles. The O's had their way with Blue Jays starting pitcher Chris Bassett, who allowed 6 runs in 2 and a third innings. Welcome back, Adley Rutschman. He is the Orioles starting catcher and number 4 batter, went 3 for 5 with a 2-run double, another double, and a single. The O's on Monday afternoon announced having reinstated Rutschman from the 10-day injured list, which he had been on since June 21st, retroactive to June 20th due to a left oblique strain. Also, the O's on Monday afternoon announced having designated catcher Jacob Stallings for assignment. But a good game for Rutschman, a good game for Kobe Mayo. He was very good in the O's winning 2 out of 3 games against the MLB worst Colorado Rockies at Oriole Park at Camden Yards over the weekend. And Mayo on Monday evening as the Orioles starting first baseman and number 9 batter went 3 for 4 with a solo homer, 2 singles, and an RBI ground out. Ramon Laureano, he is the Orioles starting right fielder and number 6 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and an RBI single. Laureano now for this regular season, 279 plate appearances, an OPS of .867, and he's tied for number 1 on the O's in home runs with 15. He, to me, very much is a trade chip. He's under contract through next season via a team option, but he's doing so well that you have to wonder if he's about to be traded. And the player with whom Laureano is tied for number 1 on the O's in homers is Cedric Mullins. He is the Orioles starting center fielder and number 8 batter, went 2 for 3 with a 2-run homer, a double, and a walk. Also, Mullins in the top of the 4th made a leaping, backhanded home run robbing catch at the center field wall on a 2-out flyout by Nathan Lucas with a runner on second base. Mullins has such an odd defensive profile. First of all, he has a good defensive reputation, but he, for this regular season as of games through Sunday, was dead last among all qualified players in MLB in defensive run saved per Sports Info Solutions at -17, and yet also had +1 outs above average per StatCast. Doesn't make much sense. But Mullins is on an expiring contract. Is he about to be traded? Cedric Mullins, first baseman / outfielder Ryan O'Hearn, starting pitchers Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, and Tomoyuki Sagano, reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez, all are on expiring contracts. Speaking of Zach Eflin, he was the Orioles starting pitcher in this 11-4 win over the Blue Jays on Monday evening, but he did not pitch well, and he is not having a good season. So this was his second start back of being on the 15-day injured list from June 30th retroactive to June 29th to July 23rd due to lower back discomfort. Eflin in the Orioles' 3-2 loss at the Cleveland Guardians last Wednesday evening, July 23rd, was good. 2 runs in 5 innings, 5 strikeouts versus 1 walk. But Eflin on Monday evening was not good. He allowed 4 runs in 4 and a third innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were 2 home runs and 6 singles. He issued a walk. He recorded 3 strikeouts. He did throw a lot of strikes, 79 pitches, 56 strikes, just 23 balls. But Zach Eflin now for this regular season at the major league level, 14 starts, ERA of 5.93, a whip of 1.4. 4-2, and he has twice been injured this season. Eflin was on the 15-day injured list from April 9th, retroactive to April 8th to May 11th. Due to a right lat strain. But the Orioles bullpen in this 11-4 win over the Blue Jays on Monday evening was good. 4 Orioles relievers combined for 4 2/3 scoreless innings. Corbin Martin tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts. Colin Selby tossed a scoreless top of the 7th. Grant Wolfram tossed a scoreless top of the 8th. And Cade Stroud tossed a scoreless top of the 9th, despite issuing a one-out hit by pitch and then issuing a one-out walk. The O's on July 24th announced having recalled Stroud from AAA Norfolk. And also, with the O's on Monday, they on Monday afternoon reinstated reliever Keegan Aiken from the 15-day injured list, which he had been on since July 2nd, retroactive to July 1st due to left shoulder inflammation. Also, the O's on Monday afternoon announced having option reliever Yaramil Geraldo to AAA Norfolk. The O's on July 26th announced having recalled Geraldo from Norfolk. Games 2 and 3 for the O's against the Blue Jays at Oriole Park at Camden Yards are on Tuesday via a doubleheader. Game 1 of the doubleheader is on Tuesday afternoon at 12:35. Charlie Morton will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 of the doubleheader is on Tuesday evening at 6:35. The Orioles starting pitcher for that game is to be announced. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1122. Will include a lot for you on the Commanders. Also on Wednesday show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats are at the Houston Astros Tuesday night at 8:10 in Game 2 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the Toronto Blue Jays on Tuesday for a doubleheader for Games 2 and 3 of a 4-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Terry, how much closer are you to working out a deal?
We just taking it day by day.
Being here in the building, though, how does that improve the dialogue?
Just taking it day by day.